Cool. So is that a go ahead?
Yeah, you can.
All right, cool. I'll go ahead. See David. Cool. All right. I'll go ahead and share my screen so you guys can see what it is that I am presenting. It's going to be this screen. If you can see my screen, just give me a little, heads up, just so I can know that you're able to see it.
Yeah, we can. Thanks.
Awesome. Awesome. Great. I think I skipped the slide. So cool. So today I'm going to talk about Chakra UI View. And so what it is that it is a component library that helps Vue developers build accessible Vue applications with speed. And the idea that the Chakra UI is trying to communicate is one of accessibility first. So we ship components that are WAI ARIA compliant. So that means when you consume Chakra UI components, you don't have to worry whether or not they are accessible to your users. And what about the speed component? Because a lot of people usually wonder, oh, what makes it faster than others? The reason why Chakra UI is able to be very fast is because we use a style system under the hood. So it allows us to style our components using style props and override their style. So currently, Chakra UI is available. A stable version of Chakra UI is available for Vue 2.0. Currently, we're currently working on the Vue 3 version as well. And some of you might already know, but there is also a React.js version of Chakra UI. So if you are a React developer, please do not feel like, oh, I cannot try out Chakra UI because today they have to use Chakra UI. You can, as I mentioned before, they strictly follow the WI ARIA authoring practices for authoring components. And so that means all components come with the correct ARIA attributes out of the box. And why I'm particularly passionate about this is that keyboard accessibility, surprisingly, is I think probably worst implemented on all systems that I know. It's worst implemented on the web. Operating systems have this down very well. Some other systems as well, embedded systems as well have it down, have it embedded well. But in the browser in particular, it's very hard. And a lot of the work that we do around building components is repetitive. So every time you have to build a button, now you have to think about, just because it looks different, now I have to rewrite all the data attributes and the loading states and the ARIA states and the ARIA first states just to show that your button just to make sure it's accessible for people who have visual or motor issues. The other thing that Chakra UI makes it, Chakra UI is one thing that Chakra UI gives us is a customizable theme. So you can conveniently reference values from your theme throughout the entire application in any component. So for example, you can see in the code snippet here where it says BG in the first one, it's a BG of input 400. You have a theme that has a value for P at the 400 level. So you can actually define your own values and you can extend them and add whatever colors if you want. So what that code there yields, you can see we have a CBox component, it's basically a div. It yields a div, and you give it a class name that's unique, so you don't have any style clashing, and we append that style tree to the DOM. And you can also change the underlying element. So if you want to have semantic HTML, by passing the as prof, you can change the element that's underneath. You can also give it a view component as well. So, and that means you can render a view component from another library, but still style it using Chakra UI props, which is really impressive. Cool. So Chakra UI theme can be extended, and the way that you do that is in the plugin. When you import the Chakra UI plugin, you extend it by passing the theme object into the extend theme option for the plugin. The theme that Chakra UI uses is a system UI theme specification. So it's very common in the JavaScript ecosystem. So it's pretty well known. So there's a lot of support for it, a lot of documentation for it as well. Chakra UI is also built using Chakra UI components. So it's really good. So because Chakra UI ships lower primitive, I call them primitive components because they're just lower level components with a few special properties added to them, like the box and the flex and the grid. And these are semantic in themselves. So just by looking at it, you can know what it is. So box is basically a div with display block. The flex component is that which C flex is div with display flex, and C grid is a grid component. And as you can see, the styling API, we use style attributes to style the component. So as you can see here, we have the alert component. And if you look through the documentation in Chakra UI, we actually do not have a pink status type of alert. So if you set the status of the alert to say info or success, we have predefined values like green for success, or blue for info, or yellow for warning. But you can also override them by passing in your own colors, so you don't have to nest CSS just to target specific elements within the component. And why this is so powerful is also Chakra UI gives you compound components. The idea is that we don't just give you just one block or just one flat alert, and then it has a prop for the text, and then it has another prop for the icon, and then it has another prop for for very specific things. So if you want to move things around, you don't need to have this giant props object you have to manage for a component. So that way we keep UI and component logic separate. So if I want to put the icon at the end of the alert instead of at the beginning, you can do that just by putting the alert icon on the next line, just right under the pink alert row. So you can move the UI of the components around. And it also is responsive. So if you want to have responsive styles for your components, you can use the array syntax. And the way the array syntax works is that the lower the index, so that is the closer it is to the beginning of the array, that is the lower the breakpoint. So for example, below the first, for example, you see the first line where there's a P, that's a shorthand for padding. We have an array of 4, 4, and 10. And so what that is that for devices under the first breakpoint, which is for mobile, we have a padding of 4. And then for, let's say landscape, which is typically around the mobile landscape breakpoint, we still have the same padding of 4. And beyond that, then you have a padding of 10. So it's very convenient when you're styling. So you don't have to write very nested CSS, your own media queries. It's so convenient. Just a few characters, and you already have a responsive component. And the most important feature of Chakra UI is dark and light mode support out of the box. Well, it's not really the most important feature, but it seems to be developed around dark mode. And the beauty of this is that you have a component library that gives this to you out of the box, so you don't need to create your own dark, and light mode style sheets and try to nest everything. And by the time you figure out how to do it now, you have this giant CSS file, and then maybe you change the class name somewhere by accident, and now it's broken somewhere. So Chakra UI makes all components out of the box. You have a button that's ready for dark mode, that's ready for light mode. Great. So I would like to show us what Chakra UI is like in practice. I built a few demos, and at first I thought I only had about 15 minutes, so about 30 minutes for this talk. So I'm going to try and experiment with something. First, for this demo, I'm going to show you some websites that have been built with Chakra UI View before, and I'm also going to go ahead and see if we have time. If time allows, maybe I could show us what it's like to actually develop with Chakra UI. Cool. All right.
Thank you, Jonathan. You can definitely go ahead.
All right, great.
Experiment all you want.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I'm gonna mini class. So I'm gonna first go ahead and turn off my notification. All right, cool. So first thing I'm gonna show us is this beautiful website. It's called Slack. I know many people use Slack, and I built this using Chakra UI from the get-go, and it's all the source code for all the projects I'm going to show us are actually up on GitHub, so you don't have to worry about that, about when you can get access it. So and at the time, like I consumed Chakra UI components and was able to mold the design system of Slack and put it inside of Chakra UI, which is what really one of the strengths that Chakra UI has. The for most component libraries, you are locked within a very specific design system. For example, there are very amazing, really good libraries out there. For example, one that I know is Beautify. But Beautify very strictly adheres to the material design uh, component in the design system. And if say you work with designers a lot, or you have a design system that you're trying to create from scratch, and you want to just change the shadow on a component so that it matches what the designer gave you, you don't have that much flexibility in a component like this, like that. So Chakra UI was made to work for you, so that if you have a design system that you want to follow, you can simply add those theme tokens into Chakra UI and it's ready to follow. And if you want to override the style of the components, you can do it just like this. So this and all the sites I'm going to show us are actually, these pages actually do it in a couple of hours, and it's mobile responsive as well. So you can see that. Beautiful. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, it's me. Cool. Another site that was built with Chakra UI is Miro. I built the Miro landing page as well for using Chakra UI, and you can look at it here. You can see the menus and everything. And what's amazing is that when you switch between this site and the site that we just saw with Slack, you almost can't tell that they were built with the same component library because of how flexible the design system is. How you can change the design system for a component library. And I think this is really powerful. And I think this is what, I believe what component libraries should do. They should be able to be flexible for us when we consume them. So now when I'm, as a developer, if I'm given, a design, I don't have to rewrite the button from scratch. I just need to define the styles that I got from Figma, put them in the theme, and now I can consume them quite conveniently and override the component. I don't need to rewrite the button from scratch just because it looks different. And this is also mobile responsive as well. So, and all the source code is actually up on GitHub. So if you scroll down to the bottom of the page, you can see one of the sites here, and I can just show us what the code looks like. It's like some of the pages. You can see very minimal things like that. It just shows what some of the components look like. Let's look at the view. Views are quite busy. Let's look at those. And look, it's so little code. It's such a beautiful view. Isn't that amazing? Look at that. And you can set the background image property as well. Here we have a stack component with flex or the heading, and this is this component actually. That's how we're able to achieve this. So this is really convenient, and it was done quite quickly. Another component that I made was this. I took this from Airbnb's website. They have a page for certain pages for places to visit, and I thought this was interesting, and particularly this effect right here. So I thought, how could I make this card like overlay the image in a way that when you actually resize the page, you can actually see that this overlay stays the same distance away from the right edge of the image. So I tried to process the same thing, and I was able to pull it off to get this really nice, effect. I think this is beautiful. You can see the source code as well in GitHub, just to show us what it was like. This one was a bit meaty, so there's a bit of code in there. yeah, so this one was a bit meaty, and you can see here um, the transforms that I was doing there, and yeah, but it's still not so much code to achieve that. I mean, it's, you know, really nice. There's no CSS. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, that's beautiful. And then I'll show us maybe just one more. Um, just show us one more. I'm just gonna pull it up really quickly. Yeah, because now I have too much time, so I am now just trying to find more things to show you. um, yeah, this is another site that was built with Chakra UI. Just show us a few of them. Chakra UI. I know some of these pages are still up. I think I'll down. Um, yeah. Yeah, like this as well. Like this person took the Chakra UI button and they changed the way that it looks, and I thought this was impressive. So you're no longer locked into, say, a very specific design system when you're consuming components. Um, so that's really good. Um, I'll show us one more interesting thing. Move this tab out of here so I don't have to. Cool. And so right now I'm just working on, trying to recreate the Instagram landing page. For those who might not believe, I'll open Instagram uh, homepage. Um, yeah, I was actually working on this in the last hour, just trying to look up something for the talk, to show us what it's actually like. Um, yeah, so I'm just going to put these pages side by side so you can see if there is you know, a difference in how they look like. Okay, well, there is this little bug. Yeah, but if I open it up in the desktop view, um, you know, open the tabs right next to each other, they look almost identical. Yeah, and this was done, still using Chakra UI. So you have a lot of the benefit of a lot of flexibility when it comes to consuming components and and having a design system that you can change and take things out of. So what's coming in the Vue 3 version? So in the Vue 3 version, what we will provide is another way to consume uh, the Chakra UI theme. So what we'll now be able to do is that you can define the styles of the components right the from the theme object. So I'm going to show us what it will be like. Yeah, so currently, in order to extend the theme in Chakra UI view, you have to define an object just like this one. And you can define your own colors, and you're only limited to the tokens of the design system. So in the next version of Chakra UI view, what we will be doing is providing you a way to predefine the base styles for the button. So that when you consume the button component, you have a lot of flexibility. You can change the base style. So when you render it like this in the browser, it actually will not look like the Chakra UI button. It will look like the button that you define inside the theme. So you have less code, but you still have a much higher level of efficiency. This is probably the biggest feature that's coming to the next version of Chakra UI. Um, yeah, and so currently it's under development. We're hoping to have an alpha release at the end of this month, and we will be keeping everybody in the know and to be ready for Vue. Yeah, so I would like to, if 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 it's okay, I'd like to show us what it's actually like to make Chakra UI, or to make like a project in Chakra UI, or perhaps um, maybe somebody could suggest a potential thing that we could build using Chakra UI, and maybe we could try to make a small version of it right now, like we can live code something together, if that's okay.
Yeah, no, I think first of all, for anyone who didn't know what chakra meant, go watch Naruto because if you didn't get the slides, you won't get it. But I think that is exceptional that you've been able to create something of this level. And regarding a suggestion, I think that how's a Twitter clone app look like for you?
A Twitter clone app. Twitter clone is quite ambitious. But we can try. I mean, we can try it. There's nothing really stopping us, right? Well, let's see. Let me try to pull up Twitter. Are there any other suggestions before we do today?
Okay, if there are, please do put them in the chat.
Yeah, if there's any suggestions, perhaps we could try and hack something. Yeah. This is what my Twitter looks like.
Chuela says maybe a blog.
Upload. Okay, we'll make a small project, like maybe a blog. Let's see, a blog. A blog can be anything. It could be like something simple to like something big, something more complex. Um, but I'm open to ideas. Maybe if there's a link, if there's a link that you can show me, like this page. Let's make this page. That would be the best page for it.
You do have a link. Oh, Simran says maybe the Tesla website.
Tesla website. Tesla.com, I believe. Is that right? .com? Let's see. Electric cars. Yeah. Okay. I like this. Okay, let's see what. Yeah, I'm leaning towards this.
No, we can go forward with it if you're comfortable.
Okay, let's see. So like right off the bat, when you scroll, I can see there's this like scroll snapping, which I actually haven't done before. So let's see. I may not do that first. Just gonna try and paste the website. It looks like we have. Okay, so when you scroll between, the text here changes. So anyway, that's good. All right. It looks like it's very image heavy, and okay, that's interesting. I'd like to see what the contrast is like for the for the for the navbar. I noticed that there's a bit of the I think it was a shadow there, if I'm not mistaken. There's like a background black hue. I don't know if you can see that gradient there. I'm not sure that it's enough contrast. But I think I'm looking at here is raw. Okay, that's interesting. Cool. And what are we looking at on mobile? Well, I think we have a candidate here. Cool. Awesome. So first things first, let's spin up new chapter UI. Um, I'm going to right, I'm going to now open up my terminal. Okay, and I'm going to create a new Nuxt project. So I'll put typically I go for Nuxt.js, which is a VueJs framework. Those of us that don't know, it's I like that for the convenience of the component auto importing and um, the page routing. It's really convenient. And so to do that, I'm using the documentation, and this is how you add it into a project. But now we have the Nuxt CLI. So using the Nuxt CLI, you can create a new project and it will automatically do all of this for you. So I'm just gonna run the CLI. Window, you can see, you can see, and I will go to my I have a project directory. I'm going to npx npx one use next up, and this would be Tesla and Chakra. Awesome. So yeah, this is gonna scaffold itself out. In the meantime, I can show us some really interesting things that Chakra UI has. So if you notice in the documentation, whenever you try to consume a Chakra UI component, you don't have to like type everything out yourself. You can come here and like, copy the code. And another interesting thing is you can change you can actually edit the style in the component. So for example, I'd like to change the button color of this to like say yellow. And there you have it. So you can actually test and see your ideas in the documentation, which is really convenient. But my internet connection is not so very fast, but you know.
Okay, Jonathan, I just want to ask you a question in the meantime, which is
Yeah,
that I saw you did explain how, in Vue 3 now, Chakra elements are now consumed. But in regards to you maintaining your Chakra UI framework, or were there any challenges that actually came up from the upgrade from Vue 2 to Vue 3?
yeah, there were some interesting changes. Unfortunately, I didn't have like a lot of time to like showcase everything because there's actually a lot. But I can show you what I have a place where I write all my brain thoughts, so you can see what it is. Um, so we have a public workspace in Notion for Chakra UI. So if you ever are curious about knowing, oh, what is the Chakra UI team up to, what are we working on, you can always find it there. And you can go to the roadmap. So there's three big things. The first really main thing is the improvement in the theming API, which I mentioned earlier before. And this is what it looks like in code. So before, when you consume the Chakra UI components, we already have like some predefined style. So if I want to make a custom button, I want to make like a custom Chakra UI button, but with different styles. You have to consume the components, and then you have to manually edit the styles yourself. A good example of what that looks like is here, for example. Um, there's this nav button. For example, I created a component called nav button, and in here, like, well, I'm not really doing so much inside this component, but you can see that I have to do this gymnastics of like, I still have to debind all the attributes and all the props from the component so that you can consume them and style it like a normal Chakra UI component. I think a more interesting candidate for that would be click on the Slack landing page. They did do something interesting. Slack landing, that one, English components. And so I have these two components here. One is called the primary button, and the other is called the outline button. So as you can see in the template, I'm not really doing very much. I'm only just taking the attributes. So what I'm doing right now is I'm predefining the variant colors. I'm predefining the background color. I'm predefining the font sizes and the font weight of all the buttons, of all the for the Slack primary button. And the challenge with this is that there's a lot of boilerplate. So if I'm consuming that, if I'm defining what the buttons look like, and I already know the style that I want it to have, what we want to be able to do is we want to take these styles. What I'll do is I'll just copy this. In the Vue 3 version, you're going to be able to do that. And then, um, and then inside here, where we have like this in the theme, for example, when you extend the theme, you're adding a new property called components. And inside the components theme, in the component property, you can define the component that you want to override, which is the button component. And then you can define the base style like that. So now you have all the styles for your primary button by default applied to the Chakra UI button. So whenever you consume it, um, you don't need to manually write this. Your component will now just look like this. To get the same effect that I defined before, the component will just look like that. So you just need to define the button and you have the power set, which is custom button. Yeah. And so it makes it very simple. The other interesting thing we're doing with the theme is that you can now define your own variants inside the theme. So for example, here you notice we have in the Slack in the Slack landing chapter page. I defined it as a variant color called Slack, and this is the default variant, color as you can see it. It's applied to all the styles and all the states for this particular component. You can define your own variants as well, and then you can also define the styles that are applied to the variant of that component. So you can then define a variant called Slack, and then I can say for this variant, I want the background color to look like this, or I want the color to look like that, or I want the style to look like this, I want the style to look like that. So here I've defined a custom variant called Slack. Here's another variant, for its Tesla. Tesla. Let's call it model X. FB times. So inside here, you can then define the variant of your button and say this was the model X. So what this will do is it will then apply all the styles from the theme that you define here to your button component. And so it makes it very interesting, the things that you can do. So now you no longer have to create custom components just to create a new variant. You can do it right from within the theme. And this is very good. And this is very, very convenient. And so what this does is that it takes us a step closer to designing, to creating your components right from within designing tools like Figma or something like that. So I see a future where we design our components in Figma, and inside Figma, we can then take we can then export like an object with variants, with the default style and with variants and sizes, and you can take that object and just plug it right into here, and you can use it straight away inside Chapter. So you no longer have the limitation of, oh, I can't do this, or because it's Figma, I have to do a very special thing. So you can now just go into Figma, export an object, and you can be able to do it. This is the future that I see, and I believe this is going to make us, help us get a step closer to that. The other thing that I have seen that we're going to do that has really been on my heart for a long time is um, taking out the JavaScript around accessibility from the component and exposing them as like independent utility. Um, the reason for this is accessibility. JavaScript is very complex, right? Like when I was writing the first version of Chakra UI Vue, I didn't enjoy. I didn't. To be honest, I really didn't enjoy reading the entire WII spec. I know it's a specification document. It's not supposed to be a lot of fun to read, but there's a lot of information for people who are new. And in fact, I did some research and I discovered that I think 60% of developers do not implement accessibility because it is difficult. They perceive it as something very difficult to do. Um, and this was actually done by the, the board, I forget the name of the board, WCAG, the WCAG, and this was last year, 2020. So Um, that means even though the information is available, it's still very complex to consume. And for people to build tools around it, most people have to now create their own um, tab accessibility JavaScript just so you can have accessible tabs. So I was thinking, is there a way we could like remove all this logic from the components so that the component is only concerned with UI and maybe some state, and the area attributes are handled by JavaScript in another module. So that way, when somebody else who is creating their own component library and they have a tab component, they don't have to rewrite all these tab indices as you can see here. Every time the active tab changes, and we're filtering to find what the active index is, set all the letters to I expanded false, and then set the active tab I expanded true. And this is rewritten, believe it or not, people rewrite this for every component they write, um, for every component that they actually have. So the next version will be an attempt to try and extract this so that the community can also consume and also contribute towards this idea. Um, um, yeah, so that way when you consume or when you consume the components, or what I imagine it would look like to develop a new component library, its own tabs, it looks something like this. Now you don't have to do so much gymnastics. You just give it the ref of the roots tab element and pass that as an argument inside the tab accessibility um, you know, composable function. So what it will do is it will compute all the tab headers, which would be these, and once it has computed all the three, then it will figure out um, how to append the styles and the event listeners as well. Um, and so your job is just write CSS or write style for your component. You don't have to worry about this. You just consume it, give it the root element, and it will figure it out for you. Hopefully, it sounds like magic, but I believe it's possible. Um, yeah, so this is another idea. It's still very early stage, but this is what's going to be coming. Imagine this project is almost there. Oh, fuck. I will do that. And UI. I can need this link. Let's do file. Um, Russell and static deployment. Now it's installing packages. Um, I'm concerned though that this might be a bit slow, like because the whole downloading process is where I am is not very doesn't have a very fast connection. Um, but I think maybe depending on how fast it is, or maybe depending on how much time um, I have an idea which I'd like to propose. I have two ideas. One, let's go ahead and let's trudge on with my slow internet connection and see how far we're able to go. The second idea is I already have like a working project for the Instagram Chakra UI. Maybe we could continue with that and maybe see where this goes, and let's see how much more we can.
Yeah, I think we can do the second option just based off of time. And I think if you're able to also do the Tesla one maybe in your spare time, then obviously we can also attach that as a GitHub link.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. Yeah, sure. I mean, so what I'm going to do is let me just I'm going to open this project in VS Code, so we can. I think this would be a much easier thing to get started because I'm concerned. My internet is not very fast.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's cool.
Sorry about that. So I'm gonna go into the. I think I must have typed myself out. Instagram chakra. Right. So in VS Code, and in the meantime, I'm going to run yarn dev, and here we go. And I will have a browser open here. Okay. It's now building the application. And I guess in the meantime, what I do is just show us how it is I go about like rebuilding these kinds of sites. The first thing I do is I try to case the site, try to case the website. What does it look like? Desktop. What are the unique things? What does the layout look like? For example, the first thing I noticed about the Instagram site is this input. If you try to focus it, the icon and the search jump all the way to the left, and if you blur it, it comes back. And I thought this was interesting and weird at the same time, because I don't think this is how normal inputs behave. But I figured I'd try and make this its own component later on. But for now, I just made it very simple. So we have a navbar here. It seems to be clamping the width at some value here. And when you scroll, when you change the width of the site, it seems to be consistent. And then you have this sidebar disappear. It disappears. That's interesting. The other thing that I noticed also here is that the posts are all square. And so I wonder how we're going to be able to do that. But I already did, so I'll just pretend like I didn't do it. And yeah, the trick with this is figuring out how to keep the aspect ratio of the image at a 1:1, and also making sure that the image covers the entire width of the browser, of the viewport of the thing. And then there's this interesting horizontal scroll thing that we have going on there. And great, it looks like it's ready. And this is pictures of me only. I'm going to change this out so we can have other pictures as well. Cool. So the first thing I'm going to show us is what I did in the layout. So when you create a new Chakra UI project, in the next config file, like I shared with us before, you can extend the theme. So I defined a new value for the gray, so I can now use it in the actual project. So when I reference a value like gray.50 in any of the components, this is the value, the CSS style that gets applied to it. So you can see that, for example, in the layout here. So I defined a BG of gray50. I'm going to zoom in so you can see that. So I defined a background color of gray50. And so what this does is that it gives us the ability to give the background of the page a color of gray 50. That's actually the theme. So I'm going to inspect it so you can see what it looks like. Yeah, I believe it's here. Where is it? I think it's this component, this element here. I believe. Oh yeah, there it is. So you can see there's a style down here that says background color, and that background color is the F7FAFC, and it's the same value that we have inside our theme, inside the nuts, the config.js. Yeah, F7FAFC. So you can reference the values that you have in your theme from within your templates, just like this. And so yeah, so let's look at where we are now compared to the rest of Instagram. We have this this horizontal component here, and it's also clamped at this width here. And it seems like the rest of the posts also are clamped at that width. And then this little side area seems to fill the rest of the width here. So it looks like the page actually goes from this point up to that point. And so this I actually cheated beforehand. I measured the actual value. And in the theme, you can actually predefine the size of the width of that component here. So for example, You can set a max width, and it can actually be an explicit value. It doesn't have to be a value in the theme. So you can actually use real CSS values here, which is really interesting. It's really convenient. So if you need to stoop like a level lower, then you can also do that. And as you can see, I don't have a style tag. All of this is being done right in the template using CSS and JS in Vue. And so I have this page, which is the page, the actual index.html. You can think of it that way. Inside of it, I have this. I've given it a max width of 935 pixels and has a margin X of auto. And that's what you can see here, because this is the actual value in CSS when I measured it. And then we have this this container, which is the flex container that contains both this box and also the side. I don't want to call this a side panel. I'm going to call it side panel. And inside that box, we have the stories. And the stories are these little images here. And I was able to replicate the same thing. So this is how we do it. Let me open up the stories component so you can see. So in the stories component, I'm using a stack component. So what the stack does is it allows us to evenly space out components inside the evenly space out its children inside the inside the stack. So you can see this is essentially it's the same component. So maybe just to keep things simple, I'm going to remove all the others. It's a very simple file, you can see. There you go. If I save it, it's going to update as well here, and you can see it's going to be under one image. Yeah, it's updating right now. So sometimes it's a bit slow when I share my screen, so kindly forgive me. I have a very powerful machine right now. All right, yeah. So there it is. Now it's just one, but before we had a whole bunch of them. So yeah, so that's what the stack does. It allows us to evenly space its children inside it. So great. So the thing that I feel that we don't yet have is the comments section down here. So right now we have this input. It's like an input of sort, and we also have the description or the caption of the post, and it seems to be clamping it here. And then there's like this more thing, but I don't think I'm going to implement the more. What I will do though is I'll try to implement this and then show the duration of the post, how long ago it was, and then I'm going to add this input here. Yeah, I think that would be interesting because right now we don't have that. Yeah, so we have the icons. Now we just need to have the number of likes. So to do that, I'm going to go into the post component, which I already have here. So it comes in after the caption, I believe. Actually, it comes in before the caption. So for that, I'm going to create here another box component. Actually, I don't think I need to do that. It's just a text, right? So I don't need to do the box. I can just use the text. And I can put in there the number of likes. It was 18 likes. And I can give it the font weight bold. And I think the font size was relatively small, so I think I did it 10%. Let's see. All right, okay, good. It's a bit big-ish, but I think, actually, no, I think that font size is fine, actually. Cool. All right, then I'll give it a margin X here of 4 as well. There's a much cleaner way to be able to do this, I believe, so you don't have to do that yourself. Okay, cool. Then the other thing that I noticed is that on Instagram that they have this, you have the the username before the rest of the caption. So to pull that off, what I will do is I'm going to create here another text component. I can even use a span. Let's use regular elements, because you actually can use regular elements of Chakra UI by passing in the vChakra directive. Once you do that, you can then do style props like you would any other component. So this will be a font weight here of bold. And here I can then put the username, which is a username. And I'll give this a margin right. This is what it looks like. I think 3 might have been too much, but yeah. Maybe to be fair, let's give it 2. Awesome. Right. One step closer, and the next thing we have here is this little duration. It shows a duration thing, like 11 hours ago, 14 hours ago, 14 hours ago. Okay, yeah, I guess it's very simple, this one. So I'm going to create here another span. Use the vChakra directive as well, again. And I want to give it here a color of gray. $400, and I think I'll just put a hardcore number here. And I like to text transform this to uppercase. And I believe there was a bit of a margin on the y-axis. So by the way, my is actually shorthand for margin y. So that's my. We have, I believe it was maybe around, wasn't so big as well. And the font size was very small. Oh, yeah. Maybe it needs to be a bit smaller than this. So for that, like I'm gonna change this to use the ctext, because I know the ctext has some lower level size proxy. So we actually intercept this value here inside the text component, because it's made specifically for text. And so we'll have like more values like 2xs inside there. So it's just a little bit smaller. And I will give this here another margin on the x-axis. And I don't think we need this directive after that. Oh, I don't have the 2xs. Oh my. Let's see. I think I'm going to do a 0.81. I'm going to give this only a margin bottom instead of a margin. Okay. It's approximate. It's actually a lot smaller. And let's see, how can we do that? Let me give this margin bottom. Actually 2. And make this 0.7, and I'll give this a stronger value. Okay. So that should be a little smaller, a little tighter. Yeah, that looks perfect. And now we have this other box here. It's got this smiley face. I don't know what that is, but you know. Okay, it brings up the emojis. Okay, so let's create another box right under this. And for this box, I would like it to have the border bottom, border, the top color. I'd like it to have, say, a gray, I believe, 300. which have border width of 15. And yeah, let me just call it. And here I'm going to give it like padding.
Jonathan, can I just interject there quickly?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Wellington asked a question to say, can you use Bootstrap and Chakra in the same project? Thanks.
Oh, yeah, actually, that's a good question. I think you can, but it'll be quite a mess, huh? Because generally, like I know Bootstrap is quite hefty, it's quite big. Chakra UI also has like since it's more JavaScript heavy, um, it also has a it's also a bit of a trade-off. I wouldn't advise it though, but you can, you actually can. Um, but I wouldn't advise it. Maybe if you do have to, I don't know if it's a good idea, but if you do have to, there is a way you can consume only very specific parts of Chakra UI. Because Chakra UI, you can actually tree shape it. So you can take specific pieces of Chakra UI and add them into your project. So I don't know. I don't know if it's a good idea, but technically you can't. I wouldn't advise it. The advantage though is if you use Chakra UI in another project, your components will still look like Chakra UI components because Chakra UI hashes the style, the class names. I can show you what that looks like here. So if you open the if you ever visit a site built with Chakra UI and you try to inspect any of the elements, you will see that there is a class name attribute, and this class name attribute is unique to that element. You can see that there, right? It has a CSS hash, etc., etc., etc. So it's unique to that element. So you won't have any clashing styles. But I wouldn't advise it. Yeah.
He said thanks, so I think he understood.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Good on him.
Sorry?
I was just saying good on him. Good luck.
Okay. No, thanks. Thanks. You'll be able to wrap up the talk in the next 10 minutes.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. But there is still quite a bit to be built. I don't know if I will finish it today. Maybe one thing I'll try to do here is maybe make it stick to the top, because I noticed that when you scroll down, it hides this menu and it's supposed to be there. Whereas if it's sticky, it doesn't go anywhere. So I think to do that, I'm not sure if this should stay that way, but this looks like about 50 something pixels. Let's see if we can make that happen. So for that, we have a side panel. The side panel is inside the page, the index page. To make that happen, I can give it here a position of 6, a position here of sticky. And we want it to have a top value of, so it's a wild guess, but let's see. Did we already do? Oh, let's see, side panel, side panel. Oh yeah. Let's see. Okay. This should be potentially sticky up there. Maybe I have to do a pattern first. Let's see. Hopefully. That's still going on. Maybe I have a bug. It's possible. Maybe I have a typo. Let's see. Maybe it's a typo. I'm not sure. Let's see. If I move it inside here. suspicion that it might be the reason why. Let's see. It might be a CSS related reason why. Okay. And yeah, it's actually found this time, but maybe it's because this guy is not positioned relatively. Let's see. Active. That's all. I need to revise my CSS. See what's going on. I think I know why. I might be wrong. Might be wrong. Let's see if I made these children. If I made these children have a value, an alignment of flex style. This would justify this. With flex style. With this. Oh, I can look into it later. But yeah, so I guess maybe for now, maybe I'll stop here. I don't know if it's I think it's a good place for us to stop because I've kind of shown us the strengths of like using Chakra UI and how you can use it. Maybe what I will close is really show us, so okay, I've seen Chakra UI, now I need to get started. What can I do?
Jonathan, can I have a question there from Wellington again? He asked, can you use Chakra with React Native to build mobile apps? Thanks.
React Native, I'm not sure. Actually, I'm not really sure. But we might want to start the React project. So for that, you can go to github.com/chakra.ui and github.com/chakra.ui. I know there's an open issue regarding React Native, and I think there's some people.
I don't even think we have a discussion, babe.
So you might be able to find something for React Native. You just go through the issues and see if there's one that works for React Native. But technically, it should. If you're using Vue Native, for example, if you're building it, I know you can use Vue components from libraries inside Vue Native, so I think that's good. Yeah, so someone's asking if Chakra UI works on Vue 3. Yes, it does actually, but it's still under development. And if you want to maybe follow the development, what I will do is I'm going to send you a link to the repo, the chat. So this is Vue 3 Chakra UI, and then somebody may want to follow the React repo. React Chakra UI. If you're like me and you're super interested in like seeing and like following up the development of the Chakra UI Vue next, you can head over to the repo. You can clone it. You can play with it. You can actually play with it. We have some live components here. So this is the playground, and so we have some alerts already built. There's a lot of things actually haven't been pushed to GitHub because recently I've been a big update. But you can already see what the components are like, and they're quite fast. You can play with them. You can clone the repository and play with it. There's actually a new interesting syntax I'm planning to introduce in Vue 3, and it looks a bit like this, where if I may show you in the upload view. Yeah, so in the upload view, previously you do something like say box, and then you give it as a section, as an element. So now I'm creating this interesting flavor of writing Chakra UI component. So you can do chakra dot the HTML element, and it will render the component, this HTML element with these styles.
Sorry, Jonathan.
Yeah.
Can we just interject there? I think just based off of time, I think some people will have to leave shortly. But in closing, I just want to ask if we'll be able to sort of get a link to your GitHub repo and Chakra for version 3 and everything else, and then obviously we'll retweet it.
Yeah, sure thing. Thank you for having me as well. I appreciate it. I know I had a lot to say, and also I feel I had maybe too much time.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, we can obviously always have another session again.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. I'd actually be down for like a chill, like live stream and code type of thing.
Yeah.
One of those.
No, that would be great because when it comes to the code, it never ends, to be honest.
For sure. All right, then I appreciate it. Thank you everyone for listening to me, and thank you for having me as well. And over to you guys.
Thank you so much, Jonathan, and thank you to all